Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
we are live.
Hello.
Hey, everybody. I think we've got Krusty Bags in the chat who is probably going to just be listening from the car to make sure that we're doing a good job. So when Kirsty had advertised this, she said she was hosting it. She's not here. I am. For those of you that don't know me, I am Kelly Swingler, the burnoutologist. If you don't know me, where the hell have you been anyway? I'm joined by Emma and Nadia, and we're going to be talking all about boundaries. I'm going to ask Nadia and Emma in a minute to introduce themselves. It does look like my internet is maybe not the best today. So if I get kicked out, Emma and Nadia are just going to freestyle it. So if you've got questions about boundaries, stick them in the chat and hopefully one of us can answer them for you if we get lost. But I'm going to quickly start. By the time Kirsty says, can I stop calling her Krusty? No, I can't.
Kirsty, this sounds like a boundary you need to set, my love.
My boundary is no, I'm not going to stop doing it. But we have got some conversations. We've got some questions that we're going to go through with everybody today. But the reason that Kirsty really wanted to do this webinar specifically on boundaries is because of the alarming data that came from the recent Evolving HR Wellbeing Survey. And really the fact that nothing had changed, not for the good anyway, when it came to well-being, when it came to you putting yourselves first, when it came to your boundaries, when it came to taking care of yourselves, nothing had gotten any better. And what the data is really saying is that you're still not advocating for yourselves. You are still experiencing ridiculous amounts of stress. You are still experiencing loads and loads of burnout. For whatever reason, you don't feel able to put those boundaries in place. We're going to be talking all about that today. So if you are there, Emma's already written there. If you're there, say hi. Let us know where you're from. I'm going to post the link to the wellbeing chat in the comments for you all. Whilst I'm just doing that, Nadia, give us a quick intro if people don't know you. So who are you, what do you do, and why are you here for the conversation today on boundaries?
Thank you very much. So my name's Nadia. In the last 6 months, left a 28-year corporate career, the last decade plus of which was as a head of people in a SaaS startup, as a standalone. I had other people in the team, but not kind of full time. And back in 2019, started to realise that the impact of mental health at work, burnout, a personal experience of that journey through time, but just realising that even in a very senior role within a business, I wasn't able to have the impact on well-being, mental health, even though I was championing it and I sat on a board and I thought I'm in the best position to do this. So I retrained as a counsellor and psychotherapist. So that is what I do now. I'm really focused on that from a work perspective. So I work with people at all levels of the business across all industries. So I don't think it necessarily is a specific role or title that means you might need support. It can be at all levels, including very senior people that sat in those boardrooms with me and actually didn't feel that they either could seek support internally. So I have a private practice and I'm also one of the partners for Evolving HR because I think there's a huge need to kind of give back to that HR community as well.
There absolutely is. Thank you very much. Well, let's see where the conversation takes us today, Nadia. Emma, hey, who are you? What are you doing here? And why do you want to talk about boundaries?
Thanks, Stella, very much. I'm Emma and I'm from Kent. I don't know why I'm doing this. Why did I start with that? I'm Emma.
Emma's off, everybody.
It started. I'm Emma. My company is Be Unstoppable. I help women in HR to get unstuck and take control of their careers, even when it feels a bit scary. I'm here because I am a woman who's worked in HR. I have been very boundaryless for a really long time. I understand how difficult it is in the profession. I understand the challenges of everyone wanting you all the time, and we'll no doubt talk about that. And I also find myself frustrated and really wanting us as a profession to own our impact and our power. And I think that part of that has to come from how we allow people to interact with us. So, and what we will and won't tolerate for ourselves as individuals within the profession. That's why I'm here. Oh my God, she's gone.
Wow, she's left us to freestyle.
She's totally left us to freestyle. Oh, she's left the room. We're getting notification. She's back. This is what it's going to be like. There she is.
It's going to keep doing this.
It is, isn't it? Oh no.
Question.
I ask you the first question?
I can see some of you I know, some of you I don't. But if you are in the chat and you are joining us for this session, I want to know what you want to get out of it, right? So I can see some names. Some of you are here. I can see the FOF is in our chat here. Some of you I know, some of you I don't know. So again, right, just why are you here? What do you want to get out of it? Why have you given an hour of your time today to come and talk to us about boundaries? What do you want to get from it? What do you not want to get from it? And maybe, right, why, like, is it because you need more boundaries?
Oh, she's like, I can't see my...
I'm going to lose plot with it. Looking everybody out or just me, and I don't know what's happening, but we're just going to go with it. I'm going to I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm just going to keep chatting anyway. Right, let's start. So, Emma, I'm going to come to you first. What are your thoughts around, firstly, the word boundary? What do you think when you think of the word boundary?
I really dislike words that have become a bit mainstream, like self-care and boundary and like stuff like that. I think the word boundary is like a surface level label. I'm not a big fan of surface level labels because what I don't think they really allow us to do is to think beyond like and underneath. And what I mean by that is, I'll set a boundary by leaving work early at 5 o'clock. That's a boundary. I'm so boundaried if I do that. I don't think so. I think there's a deeper level of thinking around it, which is how do I want to be tolerated? How do I want to be treated at work? What will I tolerate for myself in terms of how I want people to interact with me? And a really, really big one of like, well, what do I want my life to look like? Like just saying I'm going to set a boundary doesn't really allow you to do the thinking around how do I want my life to interact with my work and vice versa, rather than work being everything or my responsibilities as a parent or my responsibilities as a partner being everything. What do I want my life to look at? And therefore, how do I need to engineer it? And the things I'm doing and spending my time on to bring that to life.
Yeah, awesome. If we weren't going to use the word boundary, if that had become like really mainstream and we were going to replace it with something else, I know I have my own term that I prefer to use for this, but Nadia, if we were going to replace the word boundary with something else, what would we replace it with and why?
See, I think that's really individual. I'm also not a lover of the word boundaries or self-care. I think they've been almost monetized and weaponized to kind of, there's so much I see on kind of socials using therapeutic language, and now it's used in the most random ways. I see boundaries as almost as brick walls. Sometimes, I'm going to stop everything getting in. Whereas actually, for me, I've got clients that use bridges, not boundaries. So they choose what's going to come in and out. I think it's very personal. For me, I believe it's me being, for myself, this is talking about me. It's very much just about me being who I am, being able to authentically express myself. Because, I see boundaries. I see them being used as walls and blockers as opposed to actually I think you're very right, Emma, what is beneath that, because sometimes they're used as a way of, in both having them and not having them, protection for ourselves. So I don't want to be seen like X, Y, Z. So if I keep everyone out, no one will see. Or actually, if I have them and I'm really rigid, or no, go the other way and I'm people pleasing, I'm still trying to do the same thing, because if I'm saying yes to everything, then people won't reject me, abandon me. So, for me, it's what's beneath the word for the individual and what language suits them, because I think you like non-negotiable, don't you, Kelly? And I
love non-negotiable.
Yeah, and I've got clients that use that and love that. I've got others that like the word boundary, but for so many people, it's so individual. So I think there's nuance with language, and there's meaning that we all have for different words. So I don't have one specific word. For me, for myself personally, it's about authentic expression.
Yeah. And there's some interesting stuff there, right? You said about people pleasing, and I'm like, I'm big on people pleasing. Emma, I promised Emma a rant, so maybe this is the first one.
Oh, that was my whole career.
Save it for the rant.
People pleaser here.
Yeah, but again, right, I think for lots of us, because we assume actually, like, and most of us, and I think we can see this so much in HR, right, or for anybody that's in like a profession that wants to help, that wants to support, that wants to coach. And I think we get worried about putting in whatever we call them, right, non-negotiables, boundaries, whatever, because we do want to please other people, right? We want to help, we want to please, we want to do all of that stuff. And yet fundamentally, in all of the years that I've now been doing this work, people pleasing, we think it's about us doing stuff for everybody else. But in all of the years that I've been doing this stuff, it's bugger all to do with pleasing other people, right? It's about us. About us wanting the validation. It's about us being told, oh, Emma, you're so amazing because you did that thing for me. Oh my God, Nadia, you're so fabulous because right. That's what we want when we say people pleasing, right? We want people to say that, and a lot of that is driven by fear. But then it's the same fear a lot of the time, right, that stops us putting the boundaries in the first place. Because then we think, well, if I start saying no to people then aren't going to like me. It's not really about I want to help other people. It's not. It still comes from that same fear. Actually, if I start to say no, then people, if I say no to Emma, she might not like me anymore, and I might not get asked to do this anymore. And I might get asked, like, guess what? Emma might not like me if I say no, but actually, it's okay for me to say no, right? Because Emma's not my person, right? Emma can't respect me for saying no and setting that boundary or that non-negotiable in the first place. Emma's not my person. And
Absolutely.
I think that's what more of us need to realize. Now, I get that becomes more difficult when we're internal, right? Because it's like, well, a CEO could just hate me, right? And probably many CEOs do hate their HR leaders, right? It's just, it's about respect. It's about respecting the role. It's about respecting the work. We do not have to be liked as individuals in order to be setting those boundaries as we go through. My next question for Emma and Nadia, and I'm going to ask all of you, if you are in the chat watching this, this is a question for all of you. And so if you're in the chat, I want you to answer this one as well, right? And the question is, I'm going to ask Emma and Nadia as well, so you can have a think about this whilst our audience are doing it. But what is one boundary that you regret not holding, and what did it cost you? So I want that answer in the chat for those of you that are there in the audience, right? What is one boundary that you regret not holding, and what did it cost you? And Nadia, I'll come to you with this one first. What's one boundary that you regret not holding? What was the cost?
Well, for me, it wasn't one. I was just a chronic people pleaser. I had generalized anxiety disorder into my teens, into my young adulthood, and my work started at 16. I started as an apprentice straight out of school. So actually my first set of, I guess, bosses were almost like an extension of teachers, family in that very set of formative years. So I wanted that kind of validation. I wanted to constantly know I was doing a good job. So I guess if lots of people looking from the outside in, as I rose up through my career, just saw, look at all that success. Whereas I was constantly spending every single waking minute saying yes to everything, so that I always had people saying, isn't she great? I was feeding, my esteem needs were getting met from that, but I was exhausted. And what it cost me ultimately was burnout. Because I, the kind of frenetic burnout you talk about, I was constantly just on that treadmill. I couldn't get off it. I needed that it was reassurance. I needed that reassurance that I was, worth something in this, that I was doing well constantly, and actually that sets such a bad example to other people.
It does set a bad example, but like you said, you touched on some magic there, right? It's that feeling of worth, right? I am worthy, and it's almost like our worthiness is all tied up in the work, right? The job title, the salary, the status, the position, or whatever it is, and our worth becomes that. Emma, what about you? One boundary that you regret not holding on to. What did it cost you?
I think I'm trying to formulate what the boundary is in my head, right? But so I'll explain the circumstances, which is essentially, I think, shifting, changing myself to be who I thought I needed, other people wanted me to be around them. And I think that's from a work context and a personal context. I know with like past boyfriends, I've been like, I should be like this. You'll love me then. And that's something that I know now because I've developed a sense of self, and I've done a lot of the work to understand who I am and what I want to be in the world. I think when I was younger, I didn't. I followed this is what I should. Oh, look at this model of success. I should try and be like that. And but that's different now, so I should try and be like that. So I don't know what the boundary is, how to formulate that into a sentence. But I guess I look back and wish that I hadn't shifted myself so much to fit in with people around me, and sought connections with people in a way that wasn't actually authentic and genuine. There's a thing called common enemy intimacy, which Brené Brown, I think, talks about, which is about basically having a shared enemy between you and the person that you're trying to interact with. And I really relate to that from an HR perspective, because you're like, I really want this manager to like me. So I'm going to get really on board with the fact that this person, their team's the right shit. And that I look back and I think, that's not really what I need to be as an HR professional. So there's lots of ways it manifested. I'm not quite sure how to vocalize what the boundary would have been, but that's what's coming to me.
I suppose the boundary is like being you, right? Being true to yourself, being true to who you are. And again, there's probably lots of us that can relate to that as individuals. If most of us, I can see in the chat, are women here, this doesn't just apply to women, it's to men as well. But I think there is a lot of that. We want to be liked, we want to be seen. We can, we do mold and adjust, right? And again, we have that sense of self. It's really easy to mold to be different people, right? I can be this person with Nadia, or I'm going to be this person with Emma, or I'm going to be this person with Kirsty, I'm going to be this person with Joe, I'm going to be this person with Kirsty, I'm going to be this person with this person. And actually, who am I? Who am I? Right? And that is very, very rarely a question that any of us ask. And actually, when it comes to setting anything, right, whether we're calling them boundaries or bridges or non-negotiables or whatever, it's really got to start from who am I anyway, right? Exactly. How can you set anything if you don't know who you are and where you'll go? I'm really firm. This is me. Like literally, take me or leave me. Right. And unapologetically for that. But it's taken me a hell of a lot of years of counselling and therapy and coaching and burnouts and nearly dying and chronic illness and all of that to get there. And actually, how bloody brilliant would it be if who are you was part of what we did from young kids and into schools and into the workplace, instead of these are the values or boundaries or morals or ethics of our family, of our school or our workplace, right? Forget those tick boxes. If we could all start from that sense of who am I, and build from there, right? How awesome would we be at school if we didn't feel that we needed to shut up or fit in? How awesome would we be at colleges and workplaces and all of that sort of stuff? And we'd stop burnout, right? And I can see some people putting in the chat, right? Some of these losing boundaries, the cost was mental health.
Yes.
Yeah. And some of it has resulted, the cost has been chronic health conditions. Some of us, the cost is losing ourselves. For some of it, it's confidence. For, there's all this is big stuff. Yeah. Right? None of you are saying, I just worked 2 extra hours, right? The cost, I work a bit longer. You're all putting in the chat, but not putting these boundaries in. Has had some really bloody big impacts on you, right? Some of this potentially life-changing stuff. Right, chronic health, mental health conditions, confidence, going off sick, resigning from jobs, like complete spiral. This is the impact that we can talk about with it. And so again, like when we talk about boundaries, I think, and Emma, you said, right, we can talk about it really high level, right? Well, I just need to set a boundary. But the cost of not doing it, right, whatever we call it, the cost can be life-threatening. Yeah. And we don't think of it from that perspective. right? Oh, Emma said at the beginning, right, oh, I'm just going to finish work at 5 o'clock. And we're still working at 8 o'clock. And we go, well, it's no big deal. But the on cost, right, when we think about the cumulative effects of not putting this, right, this is where it becomes like confidence threatening, career threatening, life threatening, all of this stuff. And so, like you said, like get under the skin of it, because we're not just talking, I'm going to finish work at 5 o'clock, but Emma wants me to do this thing until 7, so I'm going to stay and that's going to be all right. Because actually, if I'm allowing Emma to do that daily, what am I then allowing Nadia to do to me daily? Nadia allowing Emma to do to her daily, and vice versa. What does that do to our sense of self and how we want to grow and all of that stuff as we go through? So yeah, there's so much to unpick.
There is.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, there's a huge identity piece built into boundaries as well, and especially in terms of our work, when we kind of blend that, what I do is who I am, and those things. Actually, a lot of my clients are coming because actually they're realizing, gosh, I'm now sat at whatever level they're sat at, but a lot of them at quite senior levels going, oh, there's such a disconnect between who I put out there into the world and who I really am. And, you know, and that's all underneath, just like you say, what can be seem like a very superficial label as a boundary or something. And
that identity, and again, like we said about the worth, didn't we? But that is so true. Like so many people that I've worked with, that I speak to, it is like, and I had the same, right? I left my in-house role voluntarily, and within a couple of months I was asked to speak on like my first big stage. Like I no longer had the big company behind me, didn't have the big job title, it was just me. But I remember having this panic attack on the way to this talk in the car because I was not worthy. And the reason that I didn't think I was worthy was because I didn't have the job title and I didn't have the big company name behind me anymore. I was just, and I had not realized until that point just how much of my identity and self-worth had been tied into my job. And now, like, I love the work that I do. It's hugely important, right? I make a massive impact, I make a big difference, and it's not who I am. I could be doing anything, right? I could be teaching yoga on top of a mountain. I could be running a community. I could be working in retail full-time. I could be going back into HR. Who I am is no longer tied to what I do. And that for me is a non-negotiable. The job is the job, the work is the work. And why I'm hugely passionate about it. And you know, I sleep it, I eat it, I breathe it. I've got the t-shirts. And yet it's not who I am. It's what I do. It's not who I am. I'm just going to quickly ask if anybody's listening, if you've got questions or anything that you want to share with us, please get them in the chat. I'm going to ask that to you. I'm going to come to our next question, ladies, to see how we go. Emma, I'll come to you first on this one. Why do you think HR, more than other functions, struggle with boundary setting? We've got 10 hours for this one.
I know, right?
There's so much.
Oh my God. There's a few things for me. There's firstly, there's just this constant bloody conversation that we have about proving our worth and how does HR add value? Like, come on. Like, I just so bored of that conversation. The energy of constantly trying to prove ourselves, I think then makes it really difficult for us to say no.
Yeah.
Because if you've got trying to prove that your value, then you've got to always be available. I remember a boss saying to me, like, I want you at your desk all the time, so if anyone needs you, then they can find you. What does that mean? Like, what? That doesn't make me an effect.
That was like HR.
Right? It doesn't make me an effective HR professional to be available all the time. That's not how it works. But so there's that narrative always playing out. Like, I work predominantly with women. It is one of my opinions that not necessarily fact and open for debate, but I believe that if the profession wasn't as female dominated as it was, then maybe we might not have as many of the issues that we do. That's not to say there's anything wrong with women. It's to say that we're conditioned a particular way to be helpful, to be likable, to do things for other people, to always prioritize others. There's a lot of conditioning, like you say, from school that says we should be a certain way, and we're in a caring profession. Ultimately, everyone that I know, I think in Some people say they've fallen into HR. A lot of people say they've fallen into HR. I chose it. But I think we stay because we're so passionate about wanting to have an impact and wanting to make things different and wanting to make things right, that then to say no, or to not even say no, but to defer that yes becomes like, am I letting someone down? Am I am I letting someone down? So there's a whole load of stuff, right?
A couple of things there as well, right? Boundaries are not just about saying no, right? Again, boundaries are not just about saying no, but again, I think that's kind of where we go to. I'm totally with you on yes, I think in terms of women thing, but you also said there in terms of like HR needing to prove their value. Now again, I'm going to pick on her. Some of the rest of you in the chat may also be, but we've got Jo Bailey in the chat, who is not from HR. She's very much started in finance, but I want to ask Jo a question, and if any of the rest of you are not from HR as well, I want your input on this as well, because I specifically know Jo. I would like to know, Jo, if in your role as internal finance, how often you felt you needed to prove the value of finance. And if you're in HR in the chat, I want to know how often you feel that you have to prove the value of HR. So just maybe, I don't know, give us percentages, numbers, text, words, whatever it is that you want. But I just want to kind of come from that question there. Nadia, then, the same question to you, right? Why do you think that HR, more than other functions, struggle with this boundary setting?
For me, I found it the loneliest role I had ever sat in within a business. And I think that played in as well. Because I think I was desperate to be known by my name and not as HR, which I think is really, really common.
Loud names though, aren't we?
No, that was it. We step into that career and we give up our own identity, whilst interestingly trying to bring about EDI projects and inclusion and belonging, whilst sitting on the outside and not being welcome at the Christmas party we ended up organising that we never realised was our remit.
My teams would purposefully, we would literally, if there was a quiz or a staff party, all of our tables and all of our quizzes would quite literally have human remains on it, because we genuinely thought that's how the rest of the business would see us now. So that's how we would. Everyone was like, "What you done that for?" Let us tell you. That's literally how we. But yeah. But so, and you said lonely.
Yeah, I think it was very lonely, because there is that line between, you know, those other team members that, especially if you're in a standalone role, that I've found at certain points when you can watch those other teams and there can be friendships and things within a team. And actually then, you know, certainly when I was sitting in those roles, I remember through furlough that hadn't existed before, you know, sadly redundancies during COVID, you know, you're sat having to have conversations with people that have always, there's been a bit of distance. So it can be if you're not in an HR team and you are standalone, and like you say, do you really belong to the leadership team? I always felt a little bit yes, but no. You know, it was because they always saw you in a certain way. And even some of them would use HR instead of my actual name in emails, you know. So I think loneliness has a factor in there in terms of therefore wanting to be seen as really, really helpful. Door always open, no matter how long I'm sat there or whether I've got capacity or even capability for some things. Stuff end up on my desk that you think, God, I didn't know that was an HR thing, but I'll figure it out. So I think some of that played in as well. I don't think I've talked about.
You've raised some interesting points as well there, and particularly about like when you are a senior leader and you're still referred to as HR. Right? I've been sat, people have been like, well, HR things like, you mean Kelly, right? C-suite HR director. My name is Kelly. Sat with my other C-suite. You know, I'm not like, let's ask finance, let's ask marketing, let's ask IT. You know, they were like John and Larice, like they had names.
Yeah.
And I think we need to kind of get that. So I don't know if any of you can kind of see in the chat here, but Jo has said that it's an interesting question, and I want everybody to take note of this, right? Because I think this is a huge learning point for every single person in HR, right? Jo Joe did not have to prove finance. It was just taken as read that finance is necessary and that there is a myth that finance is commercial. That's another session. Joe's running that one by the sounds of it. But she did have to prove why she needed certain information. And again, I want to think about that because Emma's been there, Nadia's been there, I've been there. I'm sure loads of you in the chat have been there with this, right? We do feel, and again, is it intrinsic? Because 99.9% of the HR profession is still women. Is it part of the conditioning? Is it part of boundaries? Is it part of training? Is it part of the culture in the organisation? Is the soft and fluffy stuff and the people stuff still goes to HR? But if a finance function does not need to prove themselves because they're just there, they just exist, they are part of it, HR should be exactly the same. HR are a valid, valuable, vital function. And actually, people are what make businesses, right? Regardless of however many leaders and CEOs think, people, like businesses, are made up of people. And I've seen this repeatedly throughout my in-house career, right? The leaders that care about people will invest and care about HR. When they don't care about the people, they don't care about HR. That for me, that's just been, in the 20 odd years that I was internal, right? I saw it from day one. And I still sometimes felt that I had to prove. Yeah. And again, point of proving, right? Emma's been there, Nadia's been there. Again, we can see some of the chat from some of you, right? The fact that we still felt we needed to keep proving, the fact that we would have no boundaries, flex boundaries, do whatever we need to, put our own self at risk because of that, to try and continue to prove stuff to other people. And yet, Joe's telling us from a finance perspective, never had to prove the worth of finance. Finance just is because it's an important function. Imagine how bloody different, right, the well-being of HR could be if we walked into the office, right, even just straight after this meeting, right, after this session, you walk straight in this afternoon, you're like, I'm just important, right? I just matter. I function matters, and I'm just here because it's a vital part of the organisation. Imagine what that would do to the well-being of HR. Yeah. And imagine what that would do to our boundaries and the way that we talk and communicate and show up ourselves, right? That's a bloody boundary that needs to be input, right? That's a non-negotiable, right? I am here because I am important. I am here because I matter. I'm here because my function matters, and I'm here because I'm doing a great job. Next question. Shall I move on?
that was round number 2, and I'm here for it.
Absolutely. I host this session. I just need to host. I'm not here to run. And Emma was like, "Oh, are you coming?" Because I thought you were going to run that. Emma was in before me. I was like, "I'm like last minute back up for Kirsty." Right. Let's have a look. Right, Nadia, I'm going to come to you for this one first. You work with some of these senior leaders anyway. So how do you push back effectively with senior leaders without damaging trust?
I would say trust yourself, your experience, your training, your expertise.
That'd be a bloody game changer as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I think we very much, how we respond to those we report into or those around us. Sometimes there's a lot coming from our past experiences of other people we've worked with, other experiences we've had when we've maybe had to have, and it's not always pushing back, is it? Sometimes it is just, for me, difficult conversations are just conversations. Yeah. And it's about effective communication. So in there somewhere, it's about trusting yourself. You know your job. HR is a commercial job, and we are balancing business and people needs, and I don't think they're mutually exclusive. As you were saying earlier, the kind of people are what makes the business. We can all point to the research that shows what it does to the bottom line when you have really happy, engaged staff. There's lots of that out there.
We can quadruple it. As a minimum, it can quadruple it, and they
still absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I think it's about trusting yourself, build that self-confidence. And I guess when you're talking and having communication with someone and you're a bit worried about it, it's speaking from the I, take the personal out, that can be really tricky because we can, I think sometimes we start to prepare for meetings assuming how the other person is, will be, maybe our prior experiences come forward. But you know your stuff.
Yeah.
You know your stuff. So just tap back into that, because it's not personal. What you're pushing back or needing to feed back is actually based on your bedrock of knowledge. You're the experts here. And they want fast results sometimes. We all understand that. We've all sat, all of us sat and heard that news at the same time when the furlough scheme got announced, I think in one of Rishi's speeches 5+ years ago now. And the next morning we were all sat there going, it doesn't even exist in the UK. That's an American term. And all of a sudden I had the same phone calls from people saying, well, what are we going to do? Right. Now go forth and make this happen. It hadn't even been stamped into employment law. So it was about being able to say, actually, yes, but only when this and this and this happens. And I know what you are asking of me, and I will be able to respond and walk you through it. But it's being able to just, I think, remember that sometimes we do know our shit, and that's okay to say.
Even take out sometimes we do know our shit. I remember
take that out.
Closing Emma's first big meet, right? I think my my first closing thing when I got on stage, right, I was a fucking brilliant HR director, and I was, but actually I didn't realize that until I'd left and experienced 2 periods of burnout, and then it was like, oh, actually,
I love the shit. I love the pause. Brilliant, Kelly. You paused like that.
We'll just stay with it. But yes, right, we need to believe it. You are good enough. You do know your stuff. You wouldn't be in the job if you weren't, right? And I think communities like this where you can share and talk openly and ask questions and get your questions answered, right? When you've got that level of support around you. Again, I can see, Sarah, your comment there, bless you, right? I feel isolated in my role as standalone. Independent school, focus on pupils and now getting commercial income, but also reporting to the finance director. Do not get any of us started on that one. That's a whole other session, Crusty Bags.
She's gone again. She might be back really quick. Oh, she's back in. She's just doing it for dramatic effect, I think
so. The pictures and the pausing at the perfect moment.
I was doing so well, wasn't I? I had
so well. It was going really well.
10 whole minutes. But there we go. There's another session, right? Should HR and the finance function. But again, right, if we've got, it can be more difficult for the likes of Sarah in independent roles reporting to finance directors to be able to set more of those boundaries, because actually you're under the finance guys and then you're the people staff. So it can be more difficult. So again, if you have got, Emma, I'm going to come to you to ask this one. But again, right, if you're in the chat, what can you share with Sarah in terms of boundaries? Now, again, right, can be personal boundaries, work boundaries, time boundaries, professional, but like any of that stuff, right? If we're talking about boundaries, again, for me, they're non-negotiables. Whatever it is that we're calling them, but we to type in the chat, like give Sarah some tips, hints, guidance. What can Sarah be doing to support herself with more boundaries as a standalone and reporting into finance? I want you to see in the chat what you're coming up with. Emma, on that one, what advice would you give to Sarah? What could you give to, I mean, Sarah's not asking for advice, but she's getting anyway.
Just kidding anyway. I think let it be their problem. And what I mean by that is, like if people are, we're specifically really talking about a work context and people expecting too much of us and wanting us all the time, right? So if you're in that, I think even in a standalone role, you have someone that you're reporting to. So if you can, let it be their problem. I'm, speak to your boss or speak to the person in front of you. I remember working with a manager, really demanding manager, and he was like constantly on me about getting this project started. I sat down that day to start this project, and he came up to me and said, I need you to do this other project. And I was so scared of doing it. But I said to him, look, I've just sat down to work on this project that you've been like having a go at me for ages. Do you want me to focus on that and make progress on that, or do this other thing that you want me to do? Because I can't do both. And my heart was going and my mouth was dry and I wanted to jump in and be like, I'm so sorry. But I sat in silence. And I let it be his problem, because it is not reasonable for other people to expect you to give up your personal time, to work into the night, to have you running around like a blue-ass fly. That is not a reasonable expectation. And I think if that is what you are faced with and you're getting demands from all over the place, then let it be their problem. Ask them, well, what do you want me to focus on? Because I can't, I've got 4 hours left in my afternoon and I was about to do this. Would you like me to refocus my attention so that I now do this thing? So just, I think sometimes we try and do it all, and we just try and go, well, I can't say that I can't do all of this because then I'm vulnerable and I'm weak and I'm not capable and they're going to think this of me. And we come back to, will I fit in? Will I be part of it? Will they, lose my credibility and all that kind of stuff? If we just reframe that a little bit and be like, how the hell is this ever reasonable that I'm being expected to do this much stuff, and get a little bit angry about it and then make it their thing to resolve. That for me that was a huge turning point for me. So, it's not standing up, expressing myself in that place, just to say, what would you like me to focus on, and just make it their problem. And if they do have a problem with the fact that you can't cope, that's very much their problem, especially if what they're trying to expect you to do is too much. That is a them thing.
Totally, yeah. And I've got a follow-up question that I want to come to you on that in a minute. But I'm going to also show. I had an exec assistant. Her name was Elizabeth. She was amazing, and I had, like we've all said, right? I always thought I had quite good boundaries until she was recruited, and she was the best thing that had ever happened in my entire career. Managing my diary, she was gatekeeping my emails. She was doing amazing. I had a team of 4. I was leading a team of 43. We had like 4,000 people. We had all these projects and stuff that we were doing, and I'd get all these last minute requests in my emails, and she kept going back with, and honestly, she would write it, she would email it. If a meeting request came through that did not have an agenda and why I needed to be at the meeting, she'd just decline it. And when they'd come back, like, we need Kelly at the meeting, you didn't make that clear. What do you need? And what's the agenda? Do you need Kelly for the whole meeting, or do you just need her for this? But she had this thing, right? I need to get the words right a bit, but basically your inability to not manage your time effectively does not make it a priority for Kelly.
Yeah.
If you want Kelly last minute, then you need to ensure that you get your time out, because Kelly's not doing last minute, right? And if you needed this 3 weeks ago, you should have asked for it 3 weeks ago, not today. You knew the board meeting was in your diary today. Kelly's not doing it 10 minutes before. She hasn't got the time to do it. And she honestly pushed back. And at first I was like, you can't speak to people like that.
I love her.
Nobody ever argued with her. Nobody said, Elizabeth, you've got ideas too big for your station. We need Kelly to do this. She's just like that. If you can't manage your time effectively, that's not Kelly's problem. And I'm like, she was nice in that, but that's what she was saying. You can't say this to people. I'm like, C-suite HR director, and I'm like, you can't do this to people. She's like, well, I can. She was amazing, and it transformed my entire way of working. But the question that I'm going to ask, and again, Emma, I'm going to come to you on this one just from what you said, and then Nadia, I want you to answer this one as well. When we start to put those boundaries in, right? When you had first, Emma, let it be their problem. And even before we start to them, right, there can be a lot of guilt that comes, right, when we start to put some of these boundaries in place. Like I was like, Elizabeth, you can't do that to people. This is the worst thing in the world, right? We can start to get some of that guilt that comes with it. How do you either deal, manage, overcome? What do you do with that guilt? And is it something for you that was always there? Did it start to fade? What do you do with that guilt as you start to put some of those boundaries in place?
I mean, it's still there. It's still there. I still get it.
It's not gone. You're not like, I'm marvelous and this is my boundary.
No, I still get it. I think what you got to do though is be prepared for it to be uncomfortable. Yeah. When you start showing up differently around people, they're going to be like, what? And you're then going to interpret that as them thinking you're unlikable and all that stuff that we've talked about. It's going on in here. It's not necessarily reality, but it's what you've grown up with. It's what you're conditioned to be. It's what you've known your whole life. So I can't sit here and go, I don't feel that guilt, because I still do. I responded to a comment on a LinkedIn post this morning completely within my rights to say what I said, and still actually today was the first time that I was like, I'm not interrogating myself about whether I was emotional or that was unnecessary or whether I'm an angry woman. That was my thing today. I was like, no, I'm owning that because I was entitled to say what I said. And that's actually quite a pivotal moment for me too. But I think be prepared for it to be uncomfortable, and then just like sit with it rather than act on it and go to your default of, I'm feeling discomfort, so therefore I must like anticipate what the other person needs from me and respond to the need that they've not told me that they have, but I'm interpreting is there. Don't do that. Like, catch yourself, sit again, as I did with him, and sat with the silence, like sit with the guilt, interrogate it a little bit, work out, are you telling yourself the truth? Or what you're telling yourself the truth, or is there a possibility that something else is going on? So I don't know that I'd love for there to be a time that the guilt kind of completely dissolves, but I think that's just part of the human condition. And when we can reflect on it and just work out, is my truth what I'm telling myself the actual truth, or could there be something different? Then it gets easier.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Nadia, I'm going to come to you in a minute. So if Kirsty is still listening, Kirsty will know that I have no guilt when it comes to just like literally shoving two fingers up at people. I'm just like that, done. And even Michelle and I were messaging over the weekend. I can't remember what it is that she'd done. Was it an internal saboteur thing or something? But she's like, have you ever done this questionnaire before? And I was like, I don't know. And then we came back, and honestly, I won't tell in terms of the scores, but actually Michelle and I were total opposites. And what was like my top scorer was basically like, do not care what other people think. And Michelle's was then like, and we were both like, maybe we need like a little bit of each other on both of these, but we were completely other ends of the spectrum. So again, and I think that's always an interesting one, because actually I am, for me, and I think there is also this within HR as well, right? I think we can assume, well, not just as HR, right? In life in general, I think sometimes there is the assumption that when we do set those boundaries for ourselves, or when we put ourselves like, we must be selfish.
No. Just stop.
It's perfect timing.
Perfect timing. So Kelly was about to ask you the same question. Oh, she's back.
Yeah, but yeah, like your opinion isn't like, really doesn't matter that much. Like, that's where I think we need to get to. It's not that I don't care. I am a caring person.
Yes.
And I deeply respect myself and my own boundaries to not care enough about what you think about me.
Yes.
I just don't. And I get that's easier for some of us when we're in business rather than we are.
Yeah.
So Nadia, same question to you. Thank you very much. Clearly I'd frozen again then, because Emma's like, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Yeah.
Nadia, I think from your perspective again, like, so as an individual, right? So for you, talk about the guilt. But then also in the work that you do from like counselling and psychotherapy, right? This must be something that I'm assuming would come up quite a lot for some of the people that you work with, right? In terms of guilt, maybe shame, maybe fear, in terms of some of this boundary setting. So for you as an individual, how do you do it? And then what advice what questions might you be asking some of your clients to help with this?
So for me, I guess sometimes what we're feeling, and you're right, you both kind of picked up on that uncomfortable. It's because it's different. We are ourselves learning a new way of being. And then when we act upon it and we start to feel uncomfortable, that's because that's not our go-to. And everyone thinks our brain seeks safety. It actually seeks familiarity. That's why, and talking in really, really generic terms here, because I believe we're all very, very individual beings. So we are not the same, but in very broad terms, we replay patterns, and whether that's relationships, work, however that comes out, because they're familiar to us. So when you start putting yourself first, and putting boundaries in is about actually showing up for ourselves. It's more about us than it is keeping anything else out. It's much more about us going, I value myself, my opinion, who I am. I'm going to start showing up. And you're right, you're going to start showing up differently, because you're going to start putting things in place for yourself. Absolutely, as Emma said, sit with it. Don't try and push it away. There's so many things where people say distract yourself. Actually, all of our feelings, I'm not a lover of negative, positive feelings. They're just part of our feelings.
Feelings,
You know, they are feelings. They're just part of our human experience. We can have in one day joy, and we can have anger, and we can have sadness. We can have it all, or, you know, we're not just one thing. So if it feels unfamiliar, it's because it's new to us, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I guess when we say we feel it as well, some of us will. I can talk for myself. Back in my young years, my anxiety manifested physically in my hands. So it'd be my hands that shook quite visibly, so people would notice. That's how it would. And for other people, it comes up in different places, you know. But when we start to get that, when we're putting new things in place for ourselves, that's really understandable, because, again, this is new. We're starting to give ourselves new experiences. So sit with it. And I do, as a therapist, a lot of reflective practice. We have to. It's part of our clinical supervision. We are always reflecting on our own work, who we are in the room, what part of us was coming forwards, to make sure that this is all about our clients.
Yeah.
And if one of the other things I would say, and I do, as well as working with adults, I do a lot of work with the 16 plus kind of categories. And I go into a lot of colleges and schools. Not everyone. And I would say for the younger and those people I work with from corporate life, they don't always have the emotional language. And there's a really, really simple, it's called the Wheel of Emotions. And I'll put a link in our little Evolving HR app for anyone that's interested in it. And sometimes when I'm reflecting, I will just use something as simple as that to help me kind of go, is it guilt? Actually, and then you'll be able to follow what guilt is along its line. You know, is it shame? Is it a bit less than that? Am I just a bit annoyed? Am I frustrated? Am I just to help me try and unpack kind of what is really coming up for me, and then I just try and work with it like that. You know, that's a really simple thing. You can find those all over the internet.
Yeah, and there's spirals and scales and all sorts, aren't there? And there's also Brené Brown's Atlas of the Heart. I think he's really good in giving some of the descriptions in terms of some of those emotions, because again, sometimes we can't always find the words for it. But and like we can name it, and I'm totally with you, right? We don't have good and bad emotions. We have emotions.
Exactly.
And we process to go through that. Okay, I can see Joe Bailey's got a question for me, which I will answer in a minute. If any of the rest of you have got questions, please do ask them. We've got about 7 minutes left, but we're going to go through this. I've got one more question for Nadia and Emma each. And then I want to ask like how people can get in contact with you, where they can find you. So if you've got questions, get them in quickly, because time is ticking. Okay, so I'll answer Joe's question, then I'll ask you to this final one that I want to ask. So Joe has asked, did I always set these boundaries, or is this as a result of my burnout that helped me to be clear? I had always had these boundaries. So my parents will tell you that I came out of the womb stubborn and extremely bossy and very, very set in my ways. So this was always me. And then when I got into corporate, it was like, you can't be like you need to be less, this, less that, less the other. And that's when I started to lose that's when I started to lose myself, which then definitely got me to burnout number 1 and burnout number 2. So it's not so much that I've learned them. I think it's more as a result of periods of burnout and all of the work that I've done as a result of that, I have reclaimed them. But my parents will tell you, I came in, this is how I came into the world. I've just got 44 years on top of it now to make it even worse. People say this. But I did have a period of where I lost them, because I was told, you need to be less. You need to be less opinionated, less energized, less curious, less confident, less this, less. And as I did that, so really, and we talked about identity, right? I think all three of us have mentioned identity in terms of today. As I began to lose myself, in addition to that, I began to lose my boundaries. And I think that's the way that it started to happen. As I lost myself, my boundaries became less, not my boundaries became less, and then I lost myself. I think that was clear for me. So for me, it was about reclaiming. If you've got questions, get them in the chat. Emma and Nadia, one final question for you. Nadia, I'm going to come to you first. What is one small change that someone could make in HR tomorrow? Just one small change to begin reclaiming their time and energy.
I would say practice with something small. Because if we start going, right, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to put everything in place tomorrow morning, we'll get so overwhelmed with it and the feelings with it that we just won't do it. So start with what you feel would be the most comfortable thing for you to put in place for yourself. Start there and build up slowly.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Emma, what about you? One small change that someone in HR can make tomorrow to start reclaiming their time and energy?
For me, it would be building in the time for reflection. So I think we can run at 100 miles an hour and get really swept up in all the to-dos and everything on our list, and never give ourselves the time to get intentional about how we're spending our time. So for me, there's just a reflection at the end of the day. Did the choices that I make today align with what I want my life to look like? That's a really big question, but you can break that down to like, do I feel good at the end of the day or not?
Yeah.
And if not, then what choices did I make that led to that? And then you can start, well, what am I going to do differently tomorrow? So just give yourself time for reflection and give yourself the chance to get intentional about how you're spending your time.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you very, very much. I don't do small, so I'm going to chip in that I think the one thing, and I think, again, we've all spoken about it, right? I think we've just got to start knowing that we're already bloody amazing, right? That's what I'm going to start doing this, and that's not a small thing, but I do think it is a fake it till you make it type stuff, right? Stick it on Post-it notes everywhere, get it on across your computer screen, get it as your screensaver, type it as your passwords on your computer, right? I am amazing. Right. And every single time you have to type it in, right, whatever it is that you need to do to know that you are enough, because knowing that you are enough is going to help with the reflection that Emma's talked about, right? It's going to help with the small changes. It's going to help with the incremental changes. It's going to help with the boundary setting. It's going to help with all of that. But yeah, so like, and whatever your word is, I'm awesome, amazing, brilliant, fucking awesome, right? Whatever it is that you want, I don't know, but get it saved and get it as your password, right? If nothing else, set it as your password. So then you have to type it in as we go. Right, we've got 1 minute left. I can't see any other questions unless anybody can, and my internet's just pants again and they're not coming through. Nadia, if people want to find out more about you, where can they find you? LinkedIn, website, where can they find out more about what you do?
They can find me on the Evolving HR app and in the Heartbeat community on there now, as well as my website is the Mindful Business Company. And if you're looking for counselling, I'm on counselling directories. So always go to them for qualified, verified professionals.
Perfect. There we go. So counselling directory. Tell us again, Mindful Business Company, did you say?
The Mindful Business Company. Yeah.
Mindful Business Company, coaching directory, LinkedIn, Evolving HR app, and the Heartbeat community. Emma, where can people find you and what you do?
Mostly LinkedIn. There you go. Had that prepared.
She's done this before. So her first
Connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm hanging out the most whilst I sort website out and stuff. But yeah, I'm there.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So you will find Emma on LinkedIn, get chatting. Me, LinkedIn, kellyswinkler.com. And I don't know how long it's going to last, if I'm honest, everybody, because I have broken my own, well, I haven't broken, I have tweaked this week because I promised Kirsty that I would be sociable in the Evolving HR community. It may not last, but I think I've been very sociable in there this week. So we'll see how much longer you can chat with me in there for. But if not, yeah, LinkedIn and kellyswinkler.com. Ladies, thank you very much. That has been an hour. If anybody needs to dash. I think we're going to close there. But ladies, is there any final thoughts that you would like to leave with anybody just before I hit the red button?
No, just to say thank you for having me. Look forward to connecting with some of you.
Yeah, just go be awesome and disrupt stuff, people.
There we go. Go be awesome and disrupt stuff. Let's just leave it there. Thanks for getting involved in the chat. Sorry for the crappy internet. Crusty bags. We're gonna do that one. So Crusty Bags, I hope that you were able to listen from the car. If not, I'm just gonna keep saying it. Thank you to Crusty Bags for letting me guest host while she couldn't make it today. Thank you all for being able to join us, and yeah, we'll see you all in the community. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.